won't stop till killer cops are in cell blocks. Can't stop.
The following newly released video portrays an incident of assault and violence at the hands of police. Viewer discretion is advised.
I suggest you back the fuck up.
No, why you want to
This is Baltimore City Police Officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz. In a newly released video shot in 2016, Ruiz is seen with his knee on the back of an unknown man with a gun pointed at the man's head. His message was a clear one. Concerned onlookers, adhere to my dictates or else. Here, we can hear Ruiz saying to Baltimore residents,
I suggest you back the fuck up.
It is documented that Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz is a repeat violent offender, even without access to all complaints against Ruiz, undisclosed by BPD Internal Affairs records. 6 cases involving Ruiz are known. This video will briefly highlight 6 total cases beginning in July of 2013. Case 1, Abdul Salam, July 1st, 2013. Here Salam is seen victoriously smiling in celebration after the jury found Ruiz and 2 other cops liable for brutality against him. However, because the trial was civil, not criminal, Ruiz was not fired and he did not go to jail.
Police profiled me. They followed me in the back of my house, harassing me. Police proceeded to violently and hostilely approach my van with me and my son in it. As I announced, this was my home, guns drawn. Once they reached my vehicle, they violently pulled me out, ramshacked my vehicle with my 3-year-old son strapped in his car seat, threw me against the gate, slammed me repeatedly. Picked me up by my feet, and while I'm upside down, they proceeded to drop me on my head, hog tie me, and immediately when I fell on my head, Ruiz, in a wrestling type of action, and kind of hit his knee against my neck. I was arrested. I had no idea what I was being arrested for. My son is scarred to this day. He remembers the incident as it happened yesterday. When he talks about it, he always refers to Daddy being on the floor with police yesterday.
Case 2, Darrell Harris, profiled, as seen in this video, July 17th, 2013.
Yeah, Sid, what's wrong with it? Improper way with it. There's no such thing as an improper way.
You gonna tell me my job, bro?
I know the law.
Are you gonna tell me the law?
I know the law.
You gonna tell me the law?
I know the law. What's the problem? You giving me a ticket? You need my license registration?
Yeah, let me get that.
The profile, y'all use the seatbelt as a reason. Profile.
Hold on a second, sir. Do me a favor, take out your keys.
Yeah, you can record. For what? Nah. I don't feel safe right now. Do you want me to step out the car? Do you want me to step out the car? I'll step out the car. Call the police, man. What are you call a supervisor? I'm about to do shit. This is getting uploaded to the internet right now. Yeah?
And we are 2 law-abiding citizens that we are getting targeted, and I don't know why.
Just 24 hours later, Bernardez Ruiz played a leading role in the police killing of unarmed Tyrone West. Case number 3, the murder of Tyrone West, July 18th, 2013.
My brother Tyrone West was brutally murdered on July the 18th, 2013.
In both of these cases, when you look at the pleadings and the harsh language of these officers that have been quoted to me by reliable witnesses, the N-word.
And Killer Ruiz and Killer Chapman and the rest of those 11 to 15 killers, including David Lewis, took something from my family that they could never give us again. And that was my brother Tyrone West, one unarmed man who was brutally murdered, beat to death in broad daylight. Took something.
Mic check. This is West Wednesday number 470. We're calling for justice for all victims of police violence. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. So thank you guys for tuning in. I apologize that we are a little late. We was experiencing technical difficulties, so I apologize in advance. Just to kind of dive right in, as my brother Ben said, this is West Wednesday, week 470. So literally for 9 years, we have been fighting for accountability for my big brother Tyrone West, but not only my big brother Tyrone West, but for all the victims of police brutality and terrorism and murder. Like, this is really sad. Like, for anyone to fight that long and you still have really no changes. Like, we win small victories, you know, but at the end of the day, there's no killer cop in the cell block, and that's my biggest win. That's what I'm striving for. I'm striving right now for them not only to reopen my brother Tyrone West's case, but to reopen all the cases, because something truly needs to be done. Because at the end of the day, my brother Tyrone West nor any of these victims did not deserve to be traumatized and victimized. Like, this is just horrible. And it's our sad truth that we have to live with daily. And like I said, for 9 years, just fighting, and you have ups and downs. Like, we won, like, pretty much where as though people could talk about, the gag order. So that was like a small victory or whatever. But at the same time, again, I'll say no killer is in a cell block. And that is saying the fact that if you watch the video closely, a day before my brother was murdered, 24 hours before Tyrone was executed, you saw Darrell Harris. And the crazy part about it, the first two killer cops, Ruiz and Chapman, they were the same two killer cops that pulled my brother over when he was doing nothing wrong. Literally, they were in an unmarked car. They pulled him over. My brother complied by having his hands out. Witnesses said my brother was saying, "Hey, you guys, what are you pulling me over for? I didn't realize you guys were pulling me over." And Chapman said, "Hey, this is what we do to you N-words. You N-words." And pretty much Ruiz agreed, and that's when the beating began. The horse beating began of my brother, being pulled out by his dreadlocks, tasered in his neck, pepper sprayed. But the interesting, sad part about it is Ruiz is still doing what he has always been doing, that is brutalizing people. It's just sad. Like, the fact that last year this time, that video that went viral in a video happened in 2015, but unfortunately it didn't get displayed onto Murders Inc. page until last year, like when we were going through the George Floyd trials and all that stuff. But literally, we were promised that something was going to happen to Ruiz for his behavior, his dangerous behavior, because you will see him holding a gun over top of a loaded handgun. Let's be clear, this wasn't an empty gun, a loaded handgun, threatening witnesses. And this is his MO. This is what he do. He did the same thing in my brother's case when witnesses tried to step forward and step out, even though they did not know my brother, but they tried to help my brother. My brother was screaming, "Help, help, call 911, Trayvon Martin, help, help, please help." You had nurses at the scene that lived in that community that actually came out, stepped forward, and stood up and said, "Hey, stop." And they told them, "Get the F back in the house. The same thing can happen to you." And Abdul Salam case, which you heard him talk about his horrible ordeal with Ruiz. And he had his baby in the back seat of his car. And let's be crystal clear, when this happened to Abdul was pulling up in his driveway. And this is literally in the same exact neighborhood. The same exact neighborhood, but the difference from Abdul Salam was residents knew him. And thank God it was like an elderly 80-something-year-old woman who actually put her life on the line to actually save Abdul Salam. She said, don't hit him again. And the whole time, his 3-year-old, at the time, his son was 3, but literally the whole time, his baby is watching his father be brutally attacked. And the crazy part, they said it was a traffic stop for him. They pretty much said that He didn't have his seatbelt on, but as Ruiz is grabbing him out of his van, Abdul had to pretty much free himself away from his seatbelt. He had to take his seatbelt off and like, hey, what are you doing? But pretty much the same thing has happened over and over repeatedly, but at the end of the day, nobody's doing nothing to address these serious issues. And it's like, to me, I feel like they're not taking it serious. Like, and it's like I always said, I've been out here before. What happened, unfortunately, we had the uprising here in Baltimore City with Friday. Literally, my family has been out here, my supporters, we have been out here from day one. What started off as just the West family turned into a movement right here in the city, that actually goes on a national level, because we don't just support the victims of police brutality and terrorism and murder in our city. Literally, I done been in different cities, and I'm not proud, because at the end of the day, when I go to visit these different cities and states, there is a victim of police brutality. I'm going there to stand in solidarity to help lift the family loved one up, and nobody signed up in a club that we didn't participate in. We don't want to participate in this. If anybody asks me, what did I want to do before this stuff happened, I would have elected out. I would have still probably fought for, accountability for the victims, but I wouldn't have wished that, I wouldn't have wished any of our loved ones. I would have definitely, truly not wanted my brother to be murdered or any of our loved ones to be murdered. But the fact, again, like I said, a year ago, we was promised, when that video surfaced, we was promised, oh, Miss Jones, by the commissioner, that we're going to look into this, and we're going to let you guys, we're going to see what can happen. Like, at the least, I expected him to be fired. That was at the least. But nothing happened. It's just always this false hope, false promise type of thing. But at the end of the day, it's not going to stop me. I'm going to continue to not only uplift the voice of my brother Tyrone West, but literally to uplift the victims' names of everyone, or in the fact that, and it's always the victim that you don't know. Like, we hear certain names that, make the national list, but just like my sister, Dr. Ishtam Robinson, said it, and she couldn't have said it no better. She said, every case matters. It doesn't matter if they, were able to be seen on the 6 o'clock news or on CNN. The fact that someone's loved one was murdered, and that's why we feel the important need that every week, unfortunately, every week, guys, we read to you a homicide list that is happening in our city, that is followed up by a very long and heartbreaking list of police terrorism. Both of the lists are heartbreaking. Don't get it wrong, whether it's community violence or police brutality. Both of them are very devastating. Both of them leave families inside up and upside down. But at the end of the day, the big difference, and the only difference, when a police officer commits a crime and when a community person commits a crime. When a community person commits a crime and you have enough of witness to identify them and say, hey, this is the one that I saw did so and so, or what have you, they will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and you probably would never see them again. That's the difference. And with these killer cops, you hardly see them, if they get prosecuted, and it goes past an indictment. Because like one of my sisters said, you can indict a ham sandwich. It goes past the indictments, so I'm not just thrilled when an officer gets indicted. Like, what does that mean? We don't want them indicted. We want them indicted, but not only do we want them indicted, we want them criminally charged to the fullest extent of the law. We want them convicted, so I'm just pretty much letting you guys know that we're never going to stop until these killer cops are in cell blocks. And tonight I have a very special guest. This is my brother, and pretty much my brother he wears a lot of hats, and pretty much he even been into like law enforcement and things of that nature, but he does so much to stop police terrorism, and his voice is well needed. And I'm just so proud to know this brother. And I'm going to introduce our brother right now. I'm going to let him say whatever it is he want to say to add
to the conversation. So I'm going to do a mic check. And my warrior brother, you can come on, and I want you to let them know your name, where you're from, and everything that you're doing. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, sister. Thank you to the West Coalition, all of you individual activists coming together for not just an important cause, but an urgent cause. I think I would just start my comments here and then allow for more of a conversation between myself and you, Sister West, or I should say, I say Sister West, but Tawanda. You know, in July 18th, 2013, we lost a life that had value and that mattered. And I hope that all I say and do join on the energy of my ancestors, as well as those who are my elders and my comrades in struggle, that what I say and impart to your audience affirms the value of Black life and, by extension, all life. I want to start off by just acknowledging that, oddly enough, when I first went into law enforcement, and that's a story in and of itself, the first job that offered me an opportunity was the city of Baltimore. And I was warned, having just graduated from college or from the university, Rutgers State University in New Jersey, I was warned that you don't want to police in Baltimore because Baltimore was rough. But really what they were saying, and I'm only acknowledging here in this public venue, was that there was a concern about Baltimore PD, because I was an activist all my life. And I moved between the space of a Black nationalist to that of a Pan-Africanist. And the person who was advising me wanted me to be aware, because if you cross BPD, you can place your life in jeopardy. The second sort of encounter that I had with Baltimore was reading up on Harlem Renaissance poets. And one poet comes to mind, Countee Cullen. He was born in 1903 and passed in 1946. But he wrote a poem about Baltimore called The Incident. And I remember this poem. He says, once riding in Baltimore, heart filled, head filled with glee, I saw a Baltimorean keep looking straight at me. Now, I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger. And so I smiled, but he poked out his tongue and he called me a nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May through December. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. And I think Baltimore has a way of affirming the dishumanity, the dehumanity of Black people. And they don't necessarily or explicitly refer to as niggers, but in the actions that are propagated against Black people, poor people, LGBTQ&A people, etc., it's tantamount to the nigger moment. Now, I don't mean to offend anyone in this audience or to use hyperbole to excite you. Let me explain what the nigger moment is. Elijah Anderson says the nigger moment is a moment of acute disrespect. It can be slight, just an insult, or it can cost you your life. But Baltimore, interestingly enough, finds a way to remind Black people that they are the N-words. In other words, that their status is at the bottom of the social order. So if I could backtrack here for just a second, my sister, you said Beasley, Officer Beasley, and Mr. Officer Ruiz, but I think we should add Chapman. I think we should add Siofi, Hashigan. I think we should add Hinton. I think we should add Nicole Lee. I think we should add Angela Lewis. And I think we should add the 2 Morgan State University officers. Everything that I've learned about Brother West, this was an execution in broad daylight. And I want to tell you that I know and I feel that when you can execute a person of color, a poor person, a woman, a female, a member of the LGBTQ&A community in public, then is pretty much in the minds of an officer that your life is so devalued that no one cares. The third thing that I am inspired by was that when I really got into Baltimore, coming back to Baltimore in the second decade of Baltimore, I became familiar, or later in the second decade, I became familiar with what Sister Tawanda was doing. Because I was trying to understand, to be quite frank with you, why didn't the Baltimore uprising take place on Greenmount?
Exactly.
On that corridor, because you have to understand something about the ideology and the ecology of that corridor. But why didn't an uprising take place there? And I've been studying that corridor, and I came across the death of the execution of her brother and her activism. And I think I've been inspired ever since. In terms of my own biography, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I was born shortly after the Newark riots, which was an incident of police brutality, similar to what happened in Baltimore with Freddie Gray. Newark police haven't stopped laying inappropriate hands on us and taking lives. They are soul snatchers to the fullest. But I grew up in a community where we had Black officers who literally cared for the community. And they were friends. And I also grew up in a household where I had family members who were in law enforcement. So I had this really interesting sort of experience with law enforcement. Those who I knew and felt comfortable with, they were the greatest thing that law enforcement could offer. But outside of that small select few, I always understood law enforcement to be an enemy. I went into law enforcement after college because I wanted to understand, how is it that a people who profess themselves to be moral agents could commit so much violence against vulnerable people, not people who are defending themselves, not people with capable defenses, but vulnerable people. And I spent roughly about 5 years in law enforcement trying to understand policing, trying to understand race, both in the urban context as well as the suburban context. I don't need to give any more of my credentials, except that I would say I spent most of my life as a reformist. I, looked at my community in Newark, the community in Baltimore, DC, and I said, we need some sort of public safety. And so I've been hoping to reform policing in order that we would always have their presence. But I should tell you, my confidence in police have constantly been chipped away. And, the Jayland Walker incident, execution, has convinced me that you can't reform a broken system.
You can't.
And that policing has always been instituted for the repression of people of color, particularly Black people. And so now I'm a full-fledged abolitionist.
Yes. I love it. And I just want to jump in real quick just to say, first of all, I love everything that you're doing, and you are 100% right that even though I do call out Ruiz and I call out David Lewis, who actually sat on my brother's knee, he kneeled down on my brother's neck, just like George Floyd, as my brother was tortured. But the horrible part about it is that now that we have gathered the Public Information Act finally in the fullest, because for the past 8 years up until now, we kept on saying it was 11 to 15 killer cops. But we just learned this year, on the 9th year, we just learned that it was 17 that actually participated in the brutal execution of my brother. So those 9 to 10, 11 names you may see, those are only the ones who admitted saying, hey, I threw a haymaker at him, as if that wasn't enough to kill him. Or I bust him upside his head with the baton. Or I kicked him. Or I kneeled in his back. Or I did this. I pepper sprayed him. I punched him. I open close punch. It's so disgusting and traumatizing to me. And the saddest part, that anybody looking at what happened to my brother, if they don't see a problem, they are the problem. you know.
That's right.
And I just thank you for like just connecting to me, you know, and ever since I connected to you, you have never let me down. Like literally just looking at your character, and I watch you all the time. And even though we don't like talk every week or every day or whatever, but I always follow you on different social media. And I'm so proud of every time that I see you make a post or what you're doing. You know, so I just want to just give you kudos for that. And then I love how, in fact, that I know you talk about all the issues that we suffer, right? You talk about not only police brutality, you talk about the gentrification, and people need to know about that. Like all the ills that you talk about, that is the realization. And see, and that's what I think that, and I honestly don't feel like the system is broken, because to me, to say it's broken, I mean at one point it was functioning fine. I don't think it was ever functioning fine for us. I really feel like, and one of my sisters, Adina, said, and me and her kept scratching our heads, going back and forth with each other. We were saying it gotta be some unspoken rule as to why nobody really won't prosecute these killer cops. And I think I really found the unspoken rule literally about 3 years ago, and it is called something called the Casual Killing Act. And I urge anyone to look at Casual Killing Act. It happened in like the 1960s, but if you just Google Casual Killing Act, it will pretty much say that, you know, an African American person could be killed if they restrained it or resisted. You know, they could just be killed. And that's what's going on. They're not calling it the Casual Killing Act, but they're casually killing us. And it's just sickening. And then today, like I noticed that in George Floyd case, if two of the officers that stood by and didn't do anything, they got like smacked for like 3 years or whatever, which to me I felt like they should have got more time. But the fact that they got some type of time is, you know, impressive to me, because you don't hardly see that. And I really think the only reason why we are seeing what we're seeing and saw what we saw in the George Floyd case is because not only did like a few cities, the whole entire world got involved with that. You seen people overseas that were protesting and standing in solidarity. And I feel like if we keep on around the world, because these issues, no matter where we live at on the globe, it affects brown and black folks. You know, it affects everybody, because unless you're heartless, but it mainly, we are the main ones that they're targeting. And it's unfortunately, everything ties back to capitalism and racism. It's just the bottom line. You know, one feeds off the other, and here we go. Like, it broke my heart literally when I saw, like, and then the only thing I could say too about the Trump era was the Trump era let the racist people show their head. Like the stuff that they was like doing or saying, you know, behind our back, they boldly feel like, hey, we're gonna make America great again. We're gonna keep saying this stuff. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing, because these people should not be here. They are not worthy. You get what I'm saying? So with that being said, you have Sesame Street characters disrespecting two little black baby girls that are so excited. They don't know what race, you know, lies up underneath of that costume. All they know is, hey, I might see you know, whatever one of their names. I might see Big Bird or Elmo or whoever, you know, their characters. They're in these, you know, they're dressed, you know what I mean, in character. And the babies, the black little girls, are waving at them, and for them to actually, you know, touch the hands of the white little girl and the people and shun them, like give them the hand, like, are you freaking kidding me? And all we can think about, like, okay, it's a civil lawsuit, the kind of, like, you know, with millions of dollars and all. Like, it's more than the income. It's about the outcome. We should actually shut Sesame, like, it should be no more Sesame Street. But that level of disrespect to bowling, you know, people be videoing it. And the saddest part, I'm only making that point to bring my next point, is these people, these racist people, including these killer cops, these thugs, these maniacs, they don't even care if they're being filmed on video. They don't care. They don't care. I think they actually get off on being video, because then they can go back and look at the sick videos and get off on them and say, hey, this is something I did, and they get promotions for that. And it's just sad and sickening. And I just wanted to bring that. And I know I've been scrambling, but I'm a sister that deals with a lot of trauma, you know, dealing with everything. I mean, every day seeing somebody in my city get murdered, and all the media can boldly say is, oh, let's go after the squeegee kids, and what they do is, that's another part of racism. You know, they're trying to get all young males just targeting everybody's a thug. So then when anybody have an engagement with a squeegee, even though you got a few bad ones, but the crazy part, they can always say, oh, we only got a few bad apples, but they don't deem all of the police as bad officers. They'll say we just got a few bad officers. No, we got a few good cops that really care about their job. And we got a whole lot of bad ones. But the thing is, with the squeegee situation, you know, they'll just make it seem like these kids are the problem. But my thing is, if these were white kids doing that, they will find an outlet for these kids, because most of them are doing it to feed their families. You know, they're out in that blazing heat. But the crazy part, like, somebody could just ride up, but instantly, if the media is making them to be the bad guys and making people fear them. So the first thing, when a Caucasian person, somebody coming in to visit the city, they see them coming up to try to wipe their car, they're gonna get scared, or they might start saying racist stuff, and it's gonna spark up something. So to me, all I'm saying with that is, they set the stage for stuff to happen. And, you know, it's just sad and disgusting, but nobody can talk. And then I'm going to be interested in who they're going to blame now, because everything was blamed on Marilyn Mosley's policies. You know, she did this, the lack of lawness, this is why this is created. And I'm just praying. My biggest thing, though, I didn't like certain things that she did, because it's one thing to do things and then to give a lip service. You can't give a lip service. But my whole point is, I just hope they don't take us back to that zero tolerance, which I feel like they're about to do. And that's why, they're getting real excited about Ivan Bates, and they're just and I'm seeing him, they're showing pictures with him holding hands with the racist state's attorney Greg Bernstein, who laughed in my family's face, who laughed in Nicole's family face, and said that they wasn't going to prosecute no killer cops, right? And they're quick to show them shaking hands and smiling and grinning. My thing is, everybody is in a bed together, and I don't care who becomes the next state's attorney, mayor, whoever, whatever. We just need to put our foots on their necks. We need to hold them accountable. We need to stop making them just do a lip service. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's no longer acceptable. And all I wanted to say about that, and last but not least, real quick, before I let you finish doing your thing, I want to give a big special birthday shout out to Hillary. It's her birthday today. I can't believe our sister turned 60. When I say she looked like she's about 35, she looked like she's 35, and she's like the sweetest person I know. So I'm hoping that she's really enjoying her birthday. And also, it is Keith Davis Jr. birthday. And you know, Keith Davis Jr. was the first man gunned down after Freddie Gray, framed for a crime that he did not commit. So I'm praying, my prayer is that, for one, that they find who killed Kevin Jones, because that's important to me as well. They need to reopen that case and find the murderer, because I want them to actually pay for killing Kevin Jones. That young security guard did not deserve to be murdered on the way to work. You know, that is so heartbreaking. But to try to frame a man, that is beyond sad and disgusting. So my prayer is, I have two prayers. My prayer is that not only do Keith Davis Jr. not spend another day behind bars for his birthday, I'm praying that the next birthday he'll be with his children and his wife, Kelly. But my other prayer is that after that, I pray that while that's occurring, I pray that we finally find out who killed Kevin Jones, and they prosecute this killer to the fullest extent of the law, with the murderers that murdered my big brother Tyrone West. Those are my prayers. And that, you know, we stop suffering from police terrorism, and that all of the families get accountability at the end of the day for their loved ones. That's my prayer. So, brother, I'm turning the mic back over to you. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Sure. Well, so, I would say that I definitely appreciate you referencing the 17th century Virginia law, which was called the Casual Killing Act, and it related to enslaved Africans. And, you know, if those who were the enslavers, if in correcting the behavior, whatever that means, was to cause a death or significant injury, that it would not be considered a felony. In fact, the whole notion behind it as chattel property is that a possessor of property or possessor of things cannot be charged with destroying his own property. Something I've become familiar with in policing. But I think you're absolutely correct to sort of, on the one hand, point out, that there is this sort of capitalist element here. And then on the other hand, that there is this racial aspect. Combined, you have this sort of racial capitalism that I think we all need to become acquainted with to sort of understand why do we have sort of, and it's not individual. It's not an individual here or there. I mean, there are unjust killings all around the country.
Yep.
And again, you would think that, I just had a conversation with somebody and she says, well, yeah, we got to do something in this conversation. We got to do something about the killing of Black people. And I'm like, well, from a raw number perspective, there are more white males killed by police than Black people. We just are a disproportionate number of folk killed by the police. And so you shouldn't care about this just because you want to, be sympathetic towards the precarities of my life in these United States. You should care about it because your sons, brothers, your father, uncle are also potentially a targeted victim, right? But I want to talk about race though, because see, to understand the U.S., you have to understand one of the principal organizing factors here is race, and that in this society, to be considered white or to be categorized as white. And I say that with all sincerity, anyone who doesn't reject whiteness 24/7 and or have that orientation that they reject all the privileges and perks that are granted towards this inclusion in this sort of social category. But that means that you are considered scrupulous. You have more authority, and you have social capital. In other words, you are a good and productive citizen. The opposite is true for Black people. That if in fact you are Black, you are considered unscrupulous, you are a super predator waiting to be discovered, and you are at best an unproductive citizen and not even worthy to be a subject. And in between the white and the Black is the blue. And we refer to it in law enforcement as the thin blue line. That law enforcement represents the guardians of the last guardians to protect the frontier. And so in the presence of Black people, this dystopic reality sort of haunts us by day and harries us by night. In fact, this is why the thin blue line or the police decal looks the way it is. It doesn't have whiteness in it because that is understood. That is understood, tacitly understood, that is what we're protecting. But the blue line is surrounded by Black on both sides. So police are set against this chaos and, in fact, this dystopia. And in order to ensure a utopic possibility and to maintain the status quo, we accept that casualty killings, as you so adequately stated, or the death of Black bodies as collateral damage is just that. In other words, that in order for the system to maintain or to be maintained, you must have Black death. And so the media never takes a break from showing us the results of police brutality, because what's instructive is not just the police act of violence, but the body being slain or the lifeless body there. It serves as a deterrent to any of us who wish to go against that status quo, to go against, to upend that level of authority. And it reminds, in this world where dystopia exists in Black people, north, south, east, and west, while it's not true, but it reminds in the purveyor who is comfortably situated in the social category of whiteness that we got your back. Don't worry. I know that on Greenmount, if you go east across the red line. By the way, if you're on Greenmount Avenue, it turns into York Road, you look on the west side of the road, you can still see the remnants of the red line. In fact, Baltimore is so incredible that it changed the number 8 and the number 48, and it calls it the Red Link. And if you look on the east side of Greenmount Road or the Greenmount Corridor, where Morgan sits, and on the west side, if you ever notice, all the white university sits on the west side of that corridor, from Towson to Stevens University on down to Johns Hopkins and Micah, right? So it is divided. But if you look at that, you can still see the remnants of the red line. So I want to double back then. In order to understand Freddie Gray, in order to understand Tyrone West, in order to understand Brother Salam and all the people who, whether who got caught in the insidious traps or the snares of policing in Baltimore, or are just out on the block hustling, trying to stay alive, you have to understand racial capitalism. Baltimore on the outside is a beautiful butterfly, but when you come into Baltimore, you realize that the wings are weak and decrepit, and that the core of the resources sit right in the center part of it, and all the nutrients, all the resources sit there, and the wings ain't shit. Right? It's beautiful on the outside with all its murals and all of that. But when you step in, you're like, wow. And so to understand how did the butterfly become so ugly up close, you have to know the history, right? You have to know that Baltimore and the state of Maryland was deeply rooted in the enslavement of African people. And that if you even look at the Greenmount Cemetery there, where there's old Baltimorean barons, much of that wealth was produced on the backs of people who look like you and I, right? So if you don't understand that, then you're never going to get the root of policing. And it is because I understand that white supremacy, that capitalism, that xenophobia, that sexism, and or PMS, patriarchy, misogyny, and sexism, that chauvinism, that classism, and all these other isms, particularly though racism, is at the root of all these things. Reform is not possible because you can't reform the system until you uproot it. Right? We have to create a system of root shock. We have to disconnect it from its roots of white supremacy. And if you're not willing to do that or knowledgeable enough to do that, then reform is just putting a band-aid on infested wound that really will never heal. And so, you know, I appreciate again the work that you're doing. And I just pray for us all, those who are our allies. Some are gathered here, that we understand that this is a protracted fight. This is you got to be in it for the long haul. And unfortunately, this level of oppression is so hermetically sealed around us that we literally have to fight 24/7 in order to undo it. And it's a hell of a fight. But I pray that you all are blessed with the stamina that our ancestors can bring forth, that our elders can model for you, and that our comrades in the community and in the streets can share, because this is a long fight.
Absolutely, my brother. And you bring up a whole lot of good points, and I love exactly how you broke it down and all that. So I just wanted to give you a special shout out again for doing that. And I saw my sister Angela and Kieran. I want to check, is Angela still in Kieran? Because I want to introduce you and my sister Angela as well. Mic check.
Mic check.
Brother Ben, is Angela still in queue, or did she disconnect?
She's here, but it looks like she has very low reception. I'm not sure if she can connect or not.
Okay, but just to give you a little bit about who Angela is and who her loved one is. Angela, and it's so interesting that our sister lives 5 hours away, but anytime we have a special outdoor West Winds, it ain't got to be a West Wind. Anytime it's a topic dealing with police brutality, she will make her way. And unfortunately, she didn't sign up for this club, but unfortunately, brother Timothy Flemings was murdered a year ago. They still don't have the autopsy report. The children, his children, when I say the children, his beautiful children, Timothy beautiful children, are still stuck in a house where their father was murdered. Me just leaving where my brother was executed by 17 men and women, 17 animals. Like all this week, I've been having nightmares. I left there literally, you know, like, and I'm still having nightmare. This was a week ago. Like, it's just like so traumatizing. It felt like I was just literally right at the scene yesterday. Literally, that's how traumatizing it is. But it literally was a week ago. Because a week ago, was his commemoration. Then we had our West Wednesday outside for, after the state's attorneys. And then now this is our, second West Wednesday. But I'm so traumatized. I have done ever since I left the scene where my brother was murdered at all. Every time I close my eyes and I try to sleep and I try to think of good stuff, I can put the music on, I can have a good conversation, all that. But then as soon as I go to sleep, all I'm seeing is Kentmore and Causeway of my brother being brutally murdered. But I said all this to say, my sister, brother, children, her niece and nephews are still in the house where he was murdered. And I know how it felt for us to take 154 days to get my brother's autopsy report because we were like literally on the edge. I remember crying every day. I'm like, what are they covering up? Why won't they release the autopsy? So we can read it, see what's going on. And just like I thought, it was lies. It was 7 flimsy pages. And they pretty much said my brother had a bad heart. And this is Dr. Fowler that actually went on a national level in George Floyd case and said George Floyd died from carbon dioxide. He died from everything but Chauvin's knee on his neck. The same thing he did in my brother's case. And literally in Anthony Anderson's case, he deemed that a homicide, but he said it was justifiable for these maniacs to break his ribs, rupture his spleen, do all this horrible stuff unwarranted and things like that on his granddaughter's birthday. This was justifiable homicide. And he justified that. But I said, I'll say my brother, my sister, and I see she's back here, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself to you as well. But Angela has a big, beautiful heart, and it's said that she still has not gotten that autopsy in a whole year later, even though we did like a GoFundMe for the children. But the fact that we had to do anything, why didn't Brandon Scott say, you know what, let's take these babies out the home, let's get them in housing, because even though you can raise all the money in the world, it's still a due process to have landlords move in. You gotta wait, and especially we're still stuck in this pandemic, unfortunately. So all that plays a part as to why the search for them to get a house is just literally, it's just heartbreaking. But my whole point is those babies are still traumatized in a place where their father was murdered. And I am starting to have nightmares about that. I'm starting to feel for a little baby that saw, his father going through a mental health crisis. And we all have mental health crisis. We all at some point, because we go through so much shit in society daily, we can have a mental health crisis. Right here, we might snap and yell real fast or whatever, but when a baby see that, they don't know what's going on, and the first thing they say, okay, my teachers in school, because I teach my babies, if your family members hurt or they need help, call 911. And I'm really ready to stop saying that, because 911 is unfortunately that it can get your loved one killed. It's just sad and disgusting. But for that baby to have to live through, I just wanted my daddy to get some help. I just wanted them to help my daddy, help my family, and they murder him and leave the family and treat my sister family and us like we're just trash. One night stands get treated better than what we get treated. No one should be treated like trash, not even a one night stand. But I just had to try to find something to use as an example. That probably was a bad one. But the fact that you treat us like trash is very disgusting. But no further ado, I'm going to let my sister Angela introduce herself. So Angela, mic check.
Mic check.
Angela, we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. We could hear you earlier.
Well, while we're waiting for Sister Angela to get the audio together. I do want to say, interesting thing about Brother Flemings is that the police have demonstrated to us that they have great patience, depending on who the person they're encountering or dealing with is.
Yes.
We've seen them take serial killers.
Say it.
We've seen them take all kinds of quote unquote dangerous people into custody without incident. And I got to be honest with you, there's a reason why I'm not in law enforcement. It is no way that the young man goes and shoots with a military grade rifle, slaughters people. And I think he was going after, I think he was targeting Jewish people and perhaps targeting other brown people in Highland Park. He runs from you, and he's demonstrated his capacity, proclivity for violence, and he's taken without incident. Now, do I want this individual to be harmed? No, but I think that no person should be harmed. And you demonstrate time in and time again that law enforcement has the capacity to respond appropriately. Unfortunately, there is a pattern here. They respond with great patience when the perpetrator is a young white male, not a white female, but a young white male. And so, you think about what happened in Highland Park and you juxtapose that with the incident of Jayland Walker, right? Which still to this day just, the so-called shot that he from his car is inconclusive. We don't know if that was fireworks, or we don't know what it was, but I know that a medical examiner could have told us if there was gun residue on or about his clothes, in the car, or on his hands. They never said anything about that. I suspect it didn't exist. But the other thing is that if he had a loaded gun and he was on this death march, then why didn't he target the police? In fact, he ran from them. And there are laws, but as Dred Scott, this decision in 1857 indicates that Black people have no juridical rights. In other words, we have no rights that this society is bound to respect. Here's what I mean. Tennessee v. Gardner says you cannot shoot a fleeing felon. You cannot shoot a fleeing felon. In other words, he wasn't even the felon, and his back is turned, and they just unload into him. And what they say to us is that, well, he had a ski mask on. Oh, we neatly found a firearm, a magazine pulled from the firearm, which in some ways disarms it, not necessarily if there's a round in the chamber, but it certainly disarms it to a certain degree, neatly placed next to his wedding band. Now, come on, right? Like you talked about Disney World earlier with, or Sesame Street earlier with that public display of racism. Like he would neatly place it next to his wedding band. But anyway, and here's the interesting thing. They shot at this person at least 96 times. Right? There were 96 evidence markers around shells. Right? And he only got hit 40 times. That means that more than 50% of the bullets went somewhere else. Whatever happened to police officers having to be held accountable for, stray bullets? That was a residential area. I mean, 50 other people could have been shot. So all I'm saying is that, and hopefully her audio is fixed. All I'm saying is that Timothy was going through, from my observation, and I'm from afar, a mental crisis. But it is not like the police haven't demonstrated that they have the capacity to deal with that when the person is white.
And that's so true. So I'm gonna do a mic check to see if my sister has her audio together. Mic check, Angela.
Still can't.
No, unfortunately, we still can't hear you. Oh, wait.
That was her. Oh no.
No, that was Nicole.
Angela and Tawanda, if you like, Angela, you could call me and I could put my phone up to the microphone here and you could talk that way.
Another
Would
thing
you
that you
shake
could
your
try
head
is
yes?
using a different browser. So Kalfani was on Firefox originally, and then when he went to the Chrome browser, everything with his mic got fixed.
Yep.
So sis, try the Chrome browser, and if that doesn't work, you could try to call Uncle Bill and we can get you on, because I definitely would love to hear what you got to say. But real quick, I wanted to check in to see if our brother Marcellus is on, because I see we have a bunch of questions and comments, and I don't want to miss anybody's thoughts. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. So we have a few comments. AC Britt says mic check. Hillary says mic check. Bill says welcome to West Wednesday. This struggle for accountability in all cases of police terrorism is vitally important. Hillary says mic check. Nelson says mic check. AC Britt says again, why do uncover units insist on making traffic stops? They shouldn't be in an elite unit if they want to make traffic stops. As Kalfani Toure, our guest this evening, pointed out during the pre-show discussion, one of the horrendous recent police killings was Roderick Brooks. He was shot in the back of the neck by police in Houston. And AC Britt says instead he got promoted to sergeant. Commissioner Harrison is a useless embarrassment. Angela says mic check. Tawanda says mic check. Nelson says real talk. Hillary says teach. Thank you for your words and knowledge. AC Britt says yes, can't fix a broken system. And then Hillary says you can't reform a broken system. Truth. Bill says I agree. It's not a broken system. It's a system that developed when the early capitalists defeated the kings and queens and the landed gentry to serve the needs of the rich and to control and suppress the rest of us. Nelson says no summer program for the youth group. It starts from the top. Bill says, yes, Nelson. Hillary says, thank you, Tawanda. Much love. AC Britt says, the media is complicit. If you're new to watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Nelson says, check. Bill says, so sorry about those nightmares, Tawanda. Bruce says, hey, everyone, sorry to be late. AC Britt says there's a new national number for mental health help, 988. Nelson says 911 is a joke when it comes to the police. Bruce says, replying to Nelson Ellis, so true. AC Britt says yes, they're never held accountable for their recklessness. Mic check.
Mic check. Mic check. And thank you so much, Brother Marcellus. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And thank everybody that shared questions or comments. Thank you for the feedback. And like my sister Adina says, if you're new to YouTube and you're watching this for the first time, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. And so while we're still waiting for Angela, I want to yes.
Angela's coming through the phone now, so if you wanted to speak now, it's good, or whenever you like.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, so we can bring Angela on now. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, mic check.
Mic check.
Good evening. I just want to say, when I was in town last week, my sister Shantae and I called the investigator of the case on my brother. And the investigator told us that the investigation was over, that the case was closed. So we still don't have an autopsy report, investigative report, or anything. So I'm asking this guy where, when are they going to notify the family and let us know that the case is closed?
Wow.
He had no answers. We asked him about the autopsy report. He had no answers. He just told us to call the medical examiner's office. Well, the next day he called Shantae back. No, he sent her a text and told her he apologized, but the case is still open. Which is it? Is it closed or is it still open?
Wow.
Right. If you're the lead investigator, you should know what's going on.
Exactly.
He didn't have a clue. The whole city is clueless. Like you said, my sister, my nephews are still in that home. The city don't care. They're just two more little black boys that they don't even care about. They do not care. I've thought so hard and long about moving to that city. I just can't do it. I was born and raised there. I don't know if I can come back and live there though. Because either I'm going to die or I'm going to kill somebody, one or the other. Because that's how bad that city is. When you go to Baltimore, it's either fight or flight in most cases. But back to my brother and his kids. My brother Timothy Fleming was murdered. It took those officers, Jason Zimmerman and Gaston Melendez, less than 2.5 minutes to kill my brother once they entered his home. The whole time they were saying, "We're not here to hurt you," but their hands were on their guns. Fingers on the trigger. If you're not here to hurt me, why do you have your firearm out in your hand? If you're not here to hurt me, could you put your firearm back in your holster and talk to me? Then I will feel like that's less of a threat. But both of them standing there with both of their firearms in their hands, I'm going to feel threatened. So they weren't there to help him. They were there to do exactly what they did, execute him. It took less than 2.5 minutes. You cannot talk to somebody about mental health issues in less than 2.5 minutes. And then that mayor, Brandon Scott, got on the news and said that the officers did exactly what they were supposed to do. Really? So your officers were supposed to kill my brother because he was going through a mental health crisis. Okay, Brandon Scott. My sister Tawanda, be thankful that you never even seen the tape of the execution of your brother. I've seen that video of my brother being murdered. 12 shots fired, 7 went into him. They said it was an excessive force. They were less than 6 feet away from my brother. It was an excessive force. I see the video constantly. It's something I don't wish on anyone, to have to watch their loved one being murdered. It's not a movie. It was real life. It wasn't, oh, he's going to get back up and be okay. It wasn't a movie. It was reality. A harsh reality. Baltimore City is just a city that has been corrupt and is always going to be corrupt. Y'all talking about the red lines and stuff? What about that Drew Hill Park? Y'all need to see about that Drew Hill Park. Because I'm telling y'all, it's horrific. It is. I don't even know why people even still go there. It's demons out there.
Yes.
There are demons out there. Trust me when I tell you that. I said all that to say, I don't know who the new state's attorney is going to be for Baltimore City, but I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen with these killer cops that they haven't prosecuted yet. The investigation is still open. I did a criminal investigation review, and that is still open. They haven't even closed that case. It's been over a year. As a matter of fact, out that case July last year. It's been a year. I still don't have an answer. And that's horrible. My brother kids, Timothy and Christopher, are being tormented every day that they're in that home. My nephew, Timothy, has autism. He's still waiting for daddy to come home. He know daddy's gone, but he's still waiting for daddy to come home because he really don't understand it. It's so hard when I come to that city to go and visit them that I feel so bad that the last couple of times that I went there that I didn't even go by that house because I just couldn't. And it's not even about me. It's about them. But it was still hard. I just couldn't. So I know it's hard for me to just go. I know it's hard for them living there still at 12 and 14. So my prayer is someone will help my family get out of that house.
Yes, yes.
Like my sister said, we did a GoFundMe. It's not enough. $3,000 wasn't enough to move a family into another home, unfortunately. So we're still praying and we're still hopeful. So with that, I'm saying mic check.
Mike, I just want to say, sis, that I am so sorry, and I'm praying that the video surface of my brother getting killed. But if it does, I would never ever want to see it, because the stuff that I saw when I went into the funeral home after they hit my brother for 5 days. And I pulled back those sheets, I have nightmares. So every time I associate what happened to him on Kentmore Causeway, I remember the horrible bruising of his body, his dead body. I have to live with that every time. And it's sad. As much as I try to think about his beautiful smile, his face, all I can remember is him getting murdered, beat to death, pepper spray tased, tortured over 18 minutes, and those horrible images that I saw and recorded myself. I have to live with that. But that just gives me more strength every day to fight. It's heartbreaking. It's beyond horrific, but that gives me the strength to make sure I don't give a damn how long it takes. But I'm never going to stop until those damn killer cops are in a cell block. Like, I'm never going to stop. I know it seems like it's mission impossible, but at the end of the day, you know, you just think about the things that we're seeing now that unfortunately we never saw before, you know. So I just really feel like, with that being said, that I feel like change is on the way, but we are the change. We have to make the difference, you know. We have to keep on fighting, keep on putting them out there, and one day somebody will hear our cries. But real quickly, before we go to like our homicide list, because I'm looking at the time, it's 7:55, and we can take as long as we need, because this has been, like every Wednesday, is always powerful and intriguing. But our brother, he really brought the flame tonight and made our conversation beyond real and made the connection. I really give thanks for him. I give thanks for you, my sister Queen Angela, for taking a moment and the time to, you know, share your thoughts, your views, and things like that. And I'm praying for you daily. I just don't see how. And it's just sad that it shows you that this system is truly not for us, because after all the flaws and heartbreaks and all the wrongs that they have done, you would think by now they would at least got the part about getting it right, having them babies out that home and giving you guys your autopsy report. That is disgusting. Like, that is disgusting. And I want to lift up Benjamin Tyson's name. Our sister Kia, her brother, Benjamin Tyson, was gunned down. Gunned down. She had to see that whole video. She had to see that horrible video of him being gunned down, downtown Baltimore. And that's just so sad and disgusting. So my heart goes out to any and everybody. But real quick, I want to bring in the conversation Nicole so she could quickly, if possible, and I'm sorry, Queen, I'm not trying to rush you at all, because your daughter Aja and your father-in-law Anthony Anderson, they mean the world to me, and I would never ever want to rush what you went through. So take your time, but at the same time, for respectful time, just hit the facts and the points of what happened, and that way my brother can really know what happened to you. And I just give you strength, because for you to be a wife and fight like a wife, but more importantly, I'm not even impressed by the wife part, which that is good and gracious, because one day I hope to be a wife, but I'm more and always have been intrigued about you being a mother, and the fact that any parent loses their child. I don't know that kind of pain. I pray to God on my whole soul that I never ever get to feel that kind of pain. I pray to God, like, it was a nightmare losing my brother. That was like losing my father, like my mother dying all over and everything. So that was a pain that, pain is pain, but I wouldn't want to know what it feels like to lose a baby, a child that you carried in your womb for 9 months, or however long you carried your baby, to actually go through that while dealing with police brutality, and for you to be a beautiful soul still sitting here, still breathing, still grieving, is beyond remarkable. So go at my queen. Mic check.
Mic check. Not even going to be here long, because my sister Queen basically expressed everything that was going on. But I was there on the Memorial Day of her brother's death, and it really made me break down. I tried to keep it together, but being the wife of Anthony Anderson and being the mother of Aja, and it was horrible, because September the 21st, 2012, my father-in-law was killed. They beat him to death. He had a ruptured spleen. He had broken ribs. He had blunt force trauma to the head. And I was trying to be there for my husband as much as I can. And then 2 weeks later, they set my daughter up and they murdered her. She was only 16 years old. They took my daughter down to the Baltimore City Police Department because she had witnessed a murder. You basically signed her death certificate right then and there, because she did not have me or her dad there. She didn't have a lawyer, and you are not supposed to question a minor without a guardian, a parent, or something. They rendered my daughter as a snitch, and a couple of days later, or whatever, they shot my daughter in the head and killed her. So not only do I have to represent my father-in-law, I also have to try to have the strength to be there for my daughter. What makes it worse, I've never seen my father-in-law, never met him in person. The first time I seen my father-in-law was in his casket. So I never got that opportunity to meet him. But I know that he is in heaven looking down, saying that my daughter-in-law is fighting for me, standing up for me, and she never met me, But if you see my husband, you will see my father-in-law, because he spit him out. His mother, yeah, a little bit, but him and his father, that is his twin. Just like me and my daughter, that is my twin. The only difference, she's a little lighter than me. That's it. But I said all that to say that I get my strength from God, and I get my strength from the West Wednesday Coalition, because this is hard to go through if you're not surrounded by people who have been through the same thing that you've been through, or experienced it for themselves. Like my sister said earlier, nobody asked to be in this family. We didn't. But now we're going to use the fact that we are family because of our situation. We're going to turn it into a good thing. We're going to try to make it as possible. I can't even get the words out. As positive as we can. And I believe that we're all in this together, and eventually, with all the fighting, all the praying, all the marching, all the speaking, we will get accountability for our family members. And I know that even if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, it's going to happen. Just like all the people before us, they would have never known, the slaves and stuff would have never known we got to this point where we can be free to walk down the streets. But what they doing is trying to take us back to the slavery times by taking our lives and stuff like that. But we got to fight hard. We got to push back and let them know this is not right. And we're not going to take it anymore. We are going to stand up and fight for what is right. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Yeah, mic check.
Mic check. Again, my sister, you know, I love you, my sister Angela. And I just commend your fight. And I'm going to give my brother opportunity to say anything to you. And then we're going to go to Marcellus to check the questions or comments. And then we're going to go, unfortunately, into the sad list that we have tonight. Mic check.
Mic check.
Yeah, so I just want to say, first I want to just thank you all once again for the opportunity to share this space. And just thank you for holding this space and keeping this space. Unfortunately, there are many of us who unknowingly are part of this fraternity and sorority, and there's more to come. And that's why I think we all collectively fight so hard to get rid of to end police violence. I think we don't. People always ask me, why don't I talk about black on black violence? And while that concept is very problematic from a criminological standpoint, what I will say is that I've been watching what's been happening over the last couple of years, maybe the last 3 or 4 years, in fact, with regards to police in our community. When we criticize the police, justifiably so, and some of us even went as far as says defund the police, and others said, we need to reform, and we all had a different sort of ask. The police by and large engaged in what I call blue fragility, and so they operated against our ask. And what they also did was they pulled out of so-called crime fighting. Now, the police have never been really good at crime fighting. In fact, we only catch maybe 25% of perpetrators after the crime has been committed. Otherwise, the other 75% is left up to detectives. So what is law enforcement's purpose then? And that purpose is to be in deterrence. We believe that police officers' presence will deter bad people. But what police officers have done over the last couple of years have withdrawn, in fact, from our communities. And they're withdrawn because we rightfully criticize them. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens in the absence of police? Well, street justice steps up and says, you know what? I have license now to run my block the way I want to run my block. Mm-hmm. I have no deterrent effect. Nothing is working against me. And so I want you all to understand the reason why I don't talk about inner city violence in these types of settings is because if you deal with police and they do their job and they treat us as human and they operate from a principle of humanism, then those who are in our communities who are doing bad stuff will know that there's a chance that they might get caught, right? But when the police intentionally, somebody said, well, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the city's doing. No, everything the city of Baltimore does is intentional. It is all part of a plan. They think through this. They're $1 million. In fact, Baltimore has a $6 billion budget. There's billions of dollars behind their decision-making and their actions. I just want to be clear on that, right? And so, they intentionally have pulled out of our communities because we criticize them. And then when the crime goes up and homicide rates go up, and they're talking about Baltimore is on record of on the trajectory of having a historical year in homicides, right? It's because you pulled out and pretended like, well, if you don't need me, I'm a step to the side. Dude, you're collecting city taxes. You're collecting our money. You don't even live in the city. You're collecting salaries from us, right? And then you refuse to do your job, right? So they refuse to do their job. Crime goes up, and then they say, you see, you guys need us. Bring us back. But don't question what we do. We have a method to the madness. And if we kill your sons and your daughters, we kill your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, your cousins, your mothers and fathers, your grandmothers and your grandfathers, aunts and uncles. Well, that's the collateral damage. As my sister so eloquently stated, it's just casual killing. It's part of the course. And so I just want to be clear. We're losing here. We were we were forcing city administrators to take back from police budgets, hire social workers, hire to go out there and respond to people with mental crises, right, etc. But we're losing it because we pulled the money from them, and politicians are like, yeah, the police is right. So they've been quietly putting the money back. And one of the biggest contributors to police budgets, surprisingly, is our very president. Joseph Biden has been given billions to the police department. And so we need to be clear in our analysis. I'm sorry to say we're losing. We're still fighting, but we're losing because we went from defund to refund. We went from downsize to upsize. There are cities around the country calling for more police officers. And so now I end this with Bates and my sister who's on her way out. She looked at the landscape and she said, well, our response, beginning with Martin O'Malley, perhaps before Martin O'Malley, but our response is just lock them up. Zero tolerance, right? Broken windows policing. And she says, we can't police our way and arrest our way out. So no, I'm not going after people for what we call bullshit reasons. Let me go after the killers. And Baltimore police said, we have no confidence in you. And so this knee-jerk reaction, I'm telling you, folks, we're losing this fight. We got to keep fighting, but we're losing. We got to take account of where we are. So they bring Bates in. And what do you think Bates is going to do? He's going to arrest his way out of this. He's going to not hold the police accountable. He's not going to prosecute corrupt police. Baltimore Police Department, unfortunately for the good ones, but it is one of the most corrupt police departments in the United States. I've been in many circles talking about police ethics, and Baltimore is always brought up. Again, I told you my first policing agency, at least that I was offered an opportunity, was Baltimore, and I was quiet. A little birdie told me, stay away from Baltimore. If you are the activist, the Black nationalist, the Pan-Africanist that I know you to be, Khalfani Touré, stay away from there. Because if you cross them, you're going to be in trouble. So we're losing the fight. And that's just a sober check on this reality that we're in. But we got to keep up the fight. And I just want to thank you all again for sharing this space with me, for holding this space. I'm sorry I'm amplifying my voice, but this is something I'm very passionate about. And I'm just like you all looking for a way out of this. Mic check.
A mic check, and I want to thank you for amplifying your voice. Like, job well done. Like, everything you said tonight is truth to power. And it's just like I said, it's just said that the mind frame that these people have is arrest your way out. They pretty much want us to beg them to do the stuff that they was doing to us, which got us here, which is why we're never going to leave here. And we're supposed to be, okay, we want to come back in the master's house. We want to come back in the master's house. So yeah, go ahead, keep on killing our loved one, yeah, just do your job. Just do your job. No, and that's just sad and sickening. That is just sad. And it shows you how real it is that if you dare say Freddie Gray life mattered, even if you didn't get no charges, but the fact that you boldly say Freddie Gray life mattered, it gave them a right to turn their whole entire back. Because if you research never lies. Like, you could do the numbers historically, you could see where the crime rate went up rocket high. It went up beyond high. You know, it went literally from maybe 100 and something murders at the end to like double that. And it's steady going up. And it's going to continue, it's going to, because they want us to be in that position to say, oh, we went back, keep on locking us up for nothing, keep doing what y'all doing. And the crazy part is they are like, and it like they got this facade that, you know, that everybody is lawless and reckless and all that. But in fact, that the white people, they do the same exact crimes daily, but they don't even want to broadcast these white killers on a public forum. Like, if you're a white murderer, you could be a serial killer. They will not even, your family will be forbidden to even talk about it. They want you to trust these dirty, cruddy investigators and all this stuff and say, oh, trust us, when they just showed us time and time before they failed us. But that's the world that we live in now. And it's just sad, but I just want to keep on telling you, my brother, job well done. And I want to continue on building with you, and you're more than welcome. I would love to have you here every week if I could. Like, I just commend you for all the stuff you're doing, and we definitely got to talk after this because of some things that I want to share offline with you and get your views and thoughts on. But before I give a mic check, I also wanted to, and I lost my train of thought that fast, and it was something really important, but I'll just go real quick and check in. Oh, it was about the black on black foolishness, which I never say, because to me, that's just another way to put us inside of a box. We know Caucasian kill Caucasians. That's not white on white crime or Caucasian on Caucasian crime. Chinese, you know, there's so many races kill. They never do that. But when it's us as a race, so it's black on black crime. Y'all stop killing yourself. Y'all pull up your pants. Y'all tighten up your shirt, the buttons on your shirt. You know, all this foolishness for them to do what they're doing to us, when at the end of the day, you know, all of us connected. All of us connected. I don't care which highway, like, we all connected to a highway. And I call it the highway. Hell, it doesn't matter what street you go down. You can go down Charles Street. You can go down St. Paul Street, Guilford Avenue. But at some point, we're going to reach that highway. I don't care what street you decide to go on. We're going to reach that highway, which to me is symbolic to this damn system. And it's the highway where all of these roads collide together. But they try to keep it separate so that way our fight and our movement won't be as big and strong. They water it down and they say police brutality's here, community violence is here, you know, the way that they teach our babies in the school is here. It's all the umbrella of legalized genocide. It's sad and disgusting, and we're just going to keep on fighting. So I want to check in again with my brother Marcellus. And again, I apologize to the audience for running over, but like I said, this has been a beyond powerful, amazing show, even though it's more than a show, because this is our life. But when I say show, we're showing you guys that these are not isolated incidents, that that's systemically happening all over the world, and that we need to fight together instead of us fighting each other. It's so easy to point a finger and say, oh, you ain't doing this, where y'all sign that when somebody commit. We all hear about it. That's why we make it our business to uplift the community violence, or to me, the unsolved homicide, because we don't even know if that's just community violence. We don't even know what's going on, especially in my city. And this is not the West Coalition. This is Wanda Jones speaking from my perspective. We don't even know if the police or the people that they work with are killing our people, are purging right now. We don't know if all this stuff, because none of these homicides make sense to me, with all these babies getting murdered, elderly people, and then they never find the shooter. But then as soon as it hit Fells Point, you know, then now we're going to find somebody. As soon as it hit their neighborhoods where they invest their money at and their businesses at, then now you want to catch a shooter. And sometimes they don't even, and the crazy part, that's why I tell everybody, be your own conscious consumer, because just because they claim to catch a victim, or came to catch a suspect, does not mean that that person committed the crime. So don't be so fast to just throw somebody down the drain and say, oh my God, yeah, smash them, throw the book at them. Do your own investigation yourself. Be your own conscious consumer to see if this is something that the media, you know, is trying, because they need a person so hard, because they want us to just shut up and they just want to lock somebody away. You know, so we need to really do better about that. But again, my brother, I just want to thank you just for everything and just being. And I pray for you every day, especially I pray for my intelligent men that have no problem, and women that have no problem going up against this dirty system. But it's nothing more powerful to me than a black educated person that has knowledge, and they bring that knowledge with that fire and flame to truth, and they put it together. That's a whole, and it's sad that it's a deadly combination, because at the same time we could be winning, but at the same time they will try to, if they can't buy you off, they'll try to kill you off. They'll try to like offer you money just to be quiet. Oh, we'll give you this grant, or we'll give you this big, large amount of money. Just be quiet, brother or sister. We want you to talk about this. And when you tell them, take their money and stick it where the sun don't shine, because that's what I told them jokers. Take it and stick it where the sun don't shine. Get out my face. Then they'll send people to try to kill you. Literally after that, I had a woman stalk me for 3 weeks. 3 weeks straight, stalk me, follow me to work in a silver car, and finally 3 weeks later, I think when she tried to ride me down, she just couldn't do it. I'm a Christian, so I plead the blood of Jesus over my life. So I just believe that I'm covered by the blood of Jesus, and that's what saved my life. Because when I walked out the store the first time, she tried to hit me. I jumped over the yellow line, and I got so scared that I ran back into the hair store to get some cupcakes. Cupcakes saved my life. I got in the line and waited a whole nother 10 minutes. The sisters buying hair, perms, all that good stuff. And then after they finished, I got my little cupcakes, went back out street, and here comes the same car again. And I'm like, what the hell? But she missed me and went straight into my park green Mercedes-Benz that my brother had at the time. And that car was so memorable to me. And I remember when the car got totaled off, me and Uncle Bill took me to the shop, and we actually took the Mercedes-Benz sign, and I have it hanging up in my house by my brother picture, because he took so much good care of my car. It's not about a material item, but it was just the fact that he washed that car, hand washed, and the fact that he was last driving that car. That's why I felt so safe in that green Mercedes-Benz. But again, I'd rather her crashed into that than me. But the fact that all this stuff happened in the system will have us look like we're crazy, like we're lunatics. Like if you hear something and you don't see, and you're not the one that's getting screwed over by the system, you might say, well, that sister needs some mental health. I'm praying for her. She need Christ. She need this, she need that. But I'm going to be honest with you. All I need is these killer cops in the cell blocks. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I got a good mind. I have every right to be paranoid, because I done almost been killed several times. Literally, we was at West Wednesday last week, and mysteriously somebody ride past shooting pellets at us. Did like a little drive-by, shooting rubber bullets at us. And I think that was intentionally done. You're doing this right in front of the state's attorney's office. I think like anytime when they send these jokes and folks to do stuff, especially at a peaceful demonstration, that is strategically done. But again, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. So I'm going to go and check in with my brother Marcellus, because I can go on to about 11 o'clock tonight. But I'm checking in with my brother Marcellus. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
So you have a few comments. Nelson says mic check. AC Britt says what? Closed. They are so inept. Nelson says too much cover up going on with the justice system. AC says sending Angela love. So sorry, sis. This city is falling. This city is failing those two boys. Someone last name Toure posted a link that says the crime report. What's blocking police reform? Call it blue fragility. Nelson says shout out to the West Wednesday Coalition. Mike check. AC Britt says it's all by design. They want the mayhem. Bill says yes, Biden was a key initiator of the 90s omnibus crime bill that ramped up mass incarceration. But I do, Amy. AC Britt says, yes, it is the most corrupt. Bill says, I don't think the Baltimore Police Department has faced any lessening of funding. They have continued uninterrupted to get about twice the funding that the city gives to the public schools. That's all for the comments. I just had one quick announcement when it's time for announcements.
Okay, cool. And I want to check in real quick before we go to our sad list and stuff like that. So, any announcements? I will ask my brother Marcellus after we get any questions or thoughts from anybody from our panel tonight before we actually wrap up. And then I'll have like closing us out after we go. But I always want us to think about, because at the end of the day, once we read those sad lists, unfortunately, we want to respect the families that are grieving and breathing, that literally at this moment I urge them, if they didn't get counseling, please get counseling, because counseling actually saved my life. Like, I was one to be like, well, I'm not crazy, I'm not gay, because anytime like I would hear when they would associate counseling, especially to black folks, like, oh, something they got a screw loose or whatever. But no, that was just to ease my mind. You have to take care of your mental health. And I learned through counseling about my triggers, all that. I learned how to take care of myself better. So it made me a better Tawanda. So I urge anyone that's going through anything, do not be embarrassed, ashamed, even if you need counseling just simply for your marriage, counseling for a relationship, just to have that person to listen to. Sometimes we always talk or whatever, or sometimes we just want somebody to listen to us. We need to get it out. Whether you get it out by talking to somebody, writing it in the journal, but you need to get it out, because at the end of the day, we don't need any more community violence, because everybody's going around with so much of hardship, and the honk of a horn sometimes could trigger you to say, oh, well, who you blowing at? And then now somebody done pulled out a weapon and somebody's life over about some foolishness that both of them at some point wish they just would have just looked at each other, turned heads, never even really made eye contact, just kept on going, home to their families, home to their life. So I want to check in real quick with the West Coalition to see if y'all want to ask our brother or comment and say anything to our brother. Mic check. And to see if our brother want to say anything in closing before we go to these sad lists. Mic check.
Mic check. I was going to talk a little about an update to that wonderful poem by Countee Cullen, but I'll save that, and perhaps Dr. Torrey and I can talk another time. It's a little late for me to bring in what I was going to bring in. Wonderful to have you here. Mic check.
Yes, Mike, and that was a beautiful poem. It was so real, like it was really amazing. But do anybody else want to share any comments? Our brother Ben, do you want to share anything with our brother? Mic check.
Mic check. Just an honor to have you here and to have you participate. I'm glad that you were able to come on board. I hope to see you back again. Maybe one of our live sessions out on the street. But also just take care of yourself. Tawanda is a real good example of how vindictive and how fragile the police force in Baltimore City is, that they feel the need to attack people legitimately. She's had her tires slashed. She's had all kinds of crazy stuff happen to her that just doesn't happen to the normal person. So take care of yourself. Make sure you got people looking out after you. Mic check.
Those were amazing words. And yeah, brother, just take care of yourself. Literally, I done had this thing follow me back to a job that I've been on now, teaching for 16 years. I remember being demoted a year, after my brother was killed. I was taking off my time. But I wasn't like calling out. I was getting approved time, but because I had approved time, I actually got demoted. Like, hey, you've been taking a lot of time off on vacation. But I'm like, I'm not taking a vacation. When you approve my time, I'm being in the courtroom. I'm doing this. We just want to give you more time to focus on West Wednesday. But to be humiliated in such a sense, instead of being uplifting and saying, hey, sister, you out there, you not only just fighting for your brother, you fighting for me and all the women here and, everybody. I commend you. But instead, I was stepped on. I was like, I done just faced almost being killed. Literally, someone cut my car tire away from the axle, and I make it back to work just to get demoted. That really crushed me. But through my perseverance, through my love that I have and will always have for my brother, none of that foolishness will ever stop me. but it's just sad the stuff that you go through that's associated when you stand up and step out for what's right and you do not sell your soul. You're going to catch hell and hot water, but you just have to be like that tree planted by the river. You should not move. You should not move. And that's what I've been, this tree. So I want to ask you, my brother, do you want to share anything before we unfortunately go to this these horrible lists tonight?
No, just sadly the list. I was thinking about Rob Adams out in San Bernardino. You mentioned the jump outs, or you didn't call them the jump outs, but people riding in unmarked cars. They were in an unmarked car, and for all I know, and for all he know, it could have been, it's California. It's like somebody could have been doing a drive-by shooting while he was providing security for the club that he was working at, and they jumped out, and within seconds, they shot him as he was running away and killed him. He was trapped between a car and a wall. And so we just got to, this roster of death is so long, and it continues to grow. And so I pay homage to those who you will call and those who we are unaware of. And just once again, thank you. And I'll go ahead and sign off. But thank you again for having me.
Okay, thank you again for being here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Mic check. And I want to go to our brother Marcellus because he have a special announcement that he want to make before we go into both of the sad lists. Mic check.
Mic check. I just wanted to announce that we're doing a challenge discussion tonight at 9 o'clock. The challenge discussion is going to be about the fight against racism. It's going to be about PLP's fight standing up against the Klan down in Mississippi. Mic check.
Mic check. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to bring our brother Brian on tonight to announce the homicides in our city. Mic check.
Thank you, Twanda. It's customary for us to just have a moment or two of silence before these lists get read off, and just to bring us into a place of reverence and quiet. So I'm just going to ask everyone to hold silence for a minute, and then I'll read the list.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so we're going to take a minute of silence for both of the lists tonight. So we're going to start right now. Mic check. Thank you guys so much for taking that minute. And thank you, Brother Brian, for always remembering that and keeping it in our space. Thank you so much. And remember, these people that we hear, these are humans. These are someone's loved ones. So if you pray, I ask that you pray tonight. If you don't pray, that's okay too. Keep these people and your positive thoughts. Send positive thoughts into the atmosphere because we're going to need it. And it's just really sad. So it's all yours, Brother Brian. Mic check.
Mic check.
Thank you. I want to say that this week we have, we know of 3 murders that we don't have victims' names for. And I'll try to uplift them next week if we get those names in time. And until we do, we have just 4 names to uphold in this past week. And so if you just answer them back to me. Arnold Henderson, 41.
Arnold
Henderson, 41.
Charles Saunders, 28.
Charles Saunders,
28.
Tony DeWitt, 42.
Tony DeWitt, 42.
Daniel Covington Jr., 47.
Daniel
Covington Jr., 47.
Those are the victims of homicide in Baltimore in the past week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our hearts and minds go out to them right now. And now, Brother Bill, Uncle Bill, I'm sorry. It's your time to read that unfortunate police brutality list. And it's just sad that, you know, each week the list grows longer in a week. Like, it's just really soon for any of the list. So, mic check.
Mic check. I just want to ask if Nicole, if you're still here, so if we have anyone without the name listed so far, if you would like to say cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe. You still with us, Nicole?
No, Nicole is no longer connected.
Okay.
So
Brian,
I
would
can
you
say,
like-
you know, I
Oh,
can
okay.
definitely say it because, you know, I created that cell blocks for killer cops. So, yeah, no problem.
That's right. Okay, well, the people whose lives were stolen by police covers a week and a day. For this West Wednesday, we're going from those killed by police on July 17th through July 25th, and it's 26 stolen lives. The first in Hillsborough, Ohio, on July the 17th, 58 years old. If we could repeat and uphold his name, Richard Poulin.
Richard Poulin.
In Aurora, Colorado, on July 18th, 27 years old, Fabian Perry.
Fabian
Perry.
Henry.
In Phoenix, Arizona, on July 19th, 22 years old, Matthew Begay.
Matthew Begay.
In West Brattleboro, Vermont, July 19th, 34 years old, Matthew Davis.
Matthew Davis.
In Fort Myers, Florida, on the 20th, a man not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Ashe. On July 20th, again, in Horn Lake, Mississippi, 39-year-old woman, Mulca Horton.
Mulca Horton.
July 20th, again, in Gastonia, North Carolina, unarmed 21-year-old man, Jason Lipscomb.
Jason Lipscomb.
In Gaithersburg, Maryland, on July the 20th, and we'll have to look into this, a 35-year-old man not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Ashe. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, on July the, excuse me. Oh, I thought I heard another Ashe. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, on July 21st, 43 years old, Wendell Taggle.
Wendell
Taggle.
Loganville, Georgia, on July 22nd, 63-year-old Leonard Hollingsworth.
Leonard Hollingsworth.
Moreno Valley, California, July the 22nd, a man not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
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 On July the 22nd, in Darlington County, South Carolina, 65 years old, Ronnie James.
Ronnie James.
In Bolingbrook, Illinois, July the 22nd, 37 years old, Christopher Hansen.
Christopher Hansen.
Also July 22nd, in Los Angeles, California, a man not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Ashe. In Douglas County, Missouri, on July 23rd, a man whose age is not given, Marvin Burke.
Marvin
Burke.
We have 11 more people to uphold this evening. On July the 23rd, in Madisonville, Ohio, 34 years old, Leonard Brewington.
Leonard
Brewington.
Houston, Texas, on July 23rd, a man who's not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Ashe. In Lauderdale, Florida, July the 23rd, a man who's not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Okay. In Dallas, Texas, also on July 23rd, 42 years old, William Whitfield.
William Whitfield.
For anyone just tuning in, the names we're reading are all people whose lives were stolen by police in the recent weeks. In Monongahela, Pennsylvania, on July 24th, 29 years old, Cody Bennett.
Cody Bennett.
In Benton, Arkansas, also on July 24th, a person who's not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Again, July the 24th, Portland, Oregon, a man who's not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Again on July 24th, in Tampa, Florida, 32 years old, Jonathan Reyes.
Jonathan
Reyes.
Once more on July 24th, as the Black Panther Party used to say, the police have run amok, did an awful lot of killing on July 24th. Englewood, Colorado, 22 years old, not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Waterloo, South Carolina, on July the 25th, 42 years old, Daniel Strange.
Daniel
Strange.
And the last person whose name we'll uphold this evening as a victim of police murder, Jackson, Mississippi, on July the 25th, not yet identified.
Cell blocks for killer cops, Ashe.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. And if I could add one more name, a relative in my family was victim of violence and died this past week. His name was Blake Angerer, and he's in Glendale, Arizona.
Can you say the name once more?
Blake Angerer.
Blake
Angerer.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Brian, I'm so sorry for your loss. If you need anything, I'm a phone call away. You can just let us know via signal chat or whatever. I'm so sorry. My heart goes out. So if there's anything you need, just feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, I want to thank our special guest, our brother. I call him my brother K. He was on fire tonight. Like, for him to actually come from the point of being an officer to an abolitionist, if that doesn't speak in volumes, I hush. I'm just going to drop the mic on that note. But again, I want to thank our sister Angela, and I'm praying for her nephews to be out of that home. Like, they should not be in that home. So I'm praying for her. I'm praying for our sister Nicole. I'm praying just for anybody that have lost anyone, whether it was through police violence, community violence. I am praying you guys have a prayer. You have a strong prayer that's coming from my household, my residents. And most importantly, I pray that they reopen all these cases. And I'm going to say it, and I'm going to end on this note. Remember, live to love, love to live. I love you all. Cell blocks for killer cops. I say, like, we need these cell blocks for these killer cops. And again, it's been a whole year since Ruiz. And just like my brother said, I should be calling each and every last one of those stinking animals out. But they didn't give me the whole list of the 17. But we want accountability for my big brother and all the victims of police terrorism. Now that Mosby is not in office, we need to push up on whoever, and we need to get Ruiz and all those Ruiz, Eric Beasley, all those, Latrice Lee, right. All those, David Lewis, each and every last one of those 17 maniacs, they belong in a cell block. And even the ones that didn't participate, that stood there and watched, just like today you saw on the news. And George Floyd's case, the two officers that sat by and watched and deprived George Floyd of medical treatment and did not stop that anal attack, the heinous attack. Well, they got 3 years. They need to start charging all the killer cops that sat by and watch. They need to be charged, and not just when you have something that's being watched upon by the world. it should be always an automatic reaction, because if we did something, we would get all charged together. We would just get charged together. So why aren't they charged together? So again, remember, live to love, love to live. I apologize because we went way over, but again, I don't apologize because the night was very important and we needed this. So mic check, live to love, love to live. And remember, stay tuned for part 2 of the video. Thank you guys all. Mic check.
Mic check.
And Mr. West begging for his life, and Mr. Salam begging for his child to be excluded and comforted from what was taking place. Not for himself, but for his 3-year-old child.
Case number 4, Adina Britt and family, September 10th, 2015.
My name is Adina Britt, and I wanted to submit a 30-second testimonial that Jorge Omar Bernardez Ruiz is one of the 11 terrorists that came into my house performing a home invasion in September 2015, terrorizing my entire family and even holding my 12-year-old son at gunpoint. He needs to be stopped.
Case number 5, unidentified arrestee, assaulted in 2016.
I suggest you back the fuck up.
No, why you
Again, this video did not surface until the summer of 2020. Case 6, Thomas McCullough, May 2016 and February 2017.
I heard my front door coming off the hinges like it exploded.
Thomas McCullough says it happened twice. In May 2016 and February 2017, Baltimore City Police burst through his green front door and raided his Pimlico home.
They said police. They come up, shotguns, guns.
He says officers ransacked the place, looking for drugs, money, and weapons. He took pictures of the damage he says they left behind.
Tell us where the drugs are, the scales, the guns, and the large amounts of money.
Nothing was found. Now he's suing police, claiming officers, including a former member of the Gun Trace Task Force, frightened him, his wife, and father-in-law when the officers conducted what his suit calls an illegal search of his home. The owner of the house tells 11 News after the second raid, he had to replace the front door. McCullough and his attorney say they want Baltimore police held accountable.
There is a colossal breach of trust.
And McCullough tells us following both raids, no one was arrested or charged.
This all begs the question, when will Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby see the prosecution of Bernardez Ruiz as warranted?
They were the stopping officers in these so-called jump-out cars, unmarked and so forth, that stopped both the West vehicle and the Salam vehicle without probable cause. And these officers are the ones that also were joined by others, but they are the ones who initiated the stops, pulled both men out of the vehicles, and commenced the vicious activity that was thrust upon them.
And the Officer Ruiz that started this attack is still working and working with promotions. He is now sergeant. But the fact that this repeat violent offender had a history leading up to my brother. There was Darrell Harris, there was James Green, Joseph Green, Abdul Salam, and my sister Adina and her family. No one family deserves to be brutally murdered or brutalized by this repeat violent offender Ruiz. It is time we take action. The time is now.
Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz is a repeat violent offender. Based on these accounts, in accordance with the law, we, the West Coalition, call for him to be fired, prosecuted, and incarcerated.
We're more than hashtags and body bags. We're more than being 6 feet in the dirt and pictures and buttons on t-shirts. Our lives matter.
For the safety of our city, the prevention of further harm, and the justice for these families, we see no other option.
And again, I'll say, the time is now.